Hi guys, welcome to another one of my videos, and in this one, this is part one of maybe 5 or 6 videos where I just go through the very basics of Python for beginners. Um, so it's not going to be very in-depth, it is purely the basics. So as in this video, this series, in fact, is going to have um, how to install Python, just a basic installation, um, a little bit about the data types that are used within Python and how they're used, um, a little bit, be a little bit about the if-else statements, so how you do conditionals and iterations. I was going to have a little bit about object-oriented implementation with Python, so like classes, um, and that's about it. Um, but in this video, I'm going to be installing the interpreter and just showing you um, some of the tools that come bundled with it. So that being said, let's get on with it. Right, so the first thing we're going to have to do is install the Python installer. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to python.org, click on downloads, and I'm going to download the latest version for Windows because that's the operating system arm. So you just got to click on that. If you have a different um, version of, if you have a different OS, for example, if you have Linux, Mac OS X, any other operating system, then you're just going to click on one of these. So I'm going to do one for Windows. If the button wants to work. There we are. So what we've got to do is I'll click on this so it will run when it's installed. Oh, sorry, yeah, when it's downloaded, and then as soon as it's downloaded, um, it's going to run it, and then that will allow us to install and configure Python itself. So currently we're on version 3.8 of Python, 3.8.2. So yeah, so what you're going to have to do is, if uh, you're going to want to install this launcher so that at other times you can come in and customize it. You're just going to want to add it to your path, because then that allows you to have like that there's something that when you are opening up a Python file, so say it ends in .pyw or .py, you'll be able there's an option to edit in ideally, but more on that in a bit. So I'm just going to click on install now. It's going to require you to have admin settings to be able to do that. There is a way to install it so you don't need it. And what that does is it just downloads the files, and then you have to manually run the bat file. There's a batch Windows batch file, or certainly that's what's in the Windows version. There's a batch file that you can manually run to open up the IDLE, which is just like the development environment that's built for Python by Python. So just waiting for this to install. It shouldn't be too long. There we are. Um, I will do that. Not sure what effect it's going to have, but it shouldn't break anything. So now it's set up Python. So it's installed it into my Python. So close. I can also close that. And now what I can do is I can just search Python. As you can see, it's all installed. Python IDLE 3.8. Yeah, I think it defaults to the 32-bit. Despite the fact my system's a 64-bit. So I'm not sure why it does that. for some reason, despite the fact that this is a 64-bit machine, I always seem to end up with 32-bit installations. So, but as you can see, there's a couple of different files. So there's the ideally, in fact, be easier if I come into my start folder and where are you? So it creates a folder in here, Python 3.8 or Python 3 point whatever version it was, or even 2.7. So we've got a couple of things here. Pycharm does not come with the installation. That's something that I added myself. So which is just an alternative development environment for Python. So you got the IDLE or the integrated development environment. I'm not sure what the L is. I mean, I'm fairly certain that's just a Monty Python joke. But don't quote me on that. It's just what I heard a technician from my old college call it. You've also got this here, which is just as if you're writing Python code straight into the console. So it's almost like the Python shell. Then you got the manuals and the module docs. So these are going to be what you can look at, you can reference rather than going to like the website. You can reference or look at various aspects of your of what Python, what your version has. So I'll quickly show you the just the straight up Python. So this will be configured to look however you have your command line set up. Because basically what this is doing, it's just running an instance of your command line that is running Python. So if you just typed in python.exe whilst you're inside of wherever the file is saved to, and then when you type in the quit command, which just quits the application that you're running, it just closes it out rather than escaping back into the file line. You then got the IDLE, and this is where you're going to do most of your actual development. Unless, of course, you use something external like Pycharm or like Atom or Visual Studio Code or even just Visual Studio, the stock standard. So the neat thing about this is the fact that it's already installed and it runs, it works, and it's pretty neat. So this is the shell. So from the shell you can type in just basic. You can just test stuff basically. So say you wanted to just test if a function worked, then you could just like I don't know. You could just type in. You could just test it out. So if I were to now type, hey, oh hey, that function works. That's cool. Um, so and there is also um, when you actually want to create a file, you should just press Control N or File, New File, or if you want to open one, File, Open. So yeah, so or you can File, Open. Open Module allows you to look at module files, which I'll get into more about them in a later video in this series. Recent files, module browsers, you can look at what modules you have installed. I'm not sure exactly what path browser is. And then there's the standard save as, save copy as, window, close, and exit. There's also a load of other functions here that if and when you install it for yourself, then you'll be able to see all this. So it allows you just to comment out stuff, etc. But that's in this one. So yeah, that's about it. There are a couple of things you can do to make your life easier. So most of the time, when you're opening up the IDLE, you don't want the shell. It's just inconvenient, and it means you've just got to go through a process of creating a new file, etc. What you can do is, if I'll close it out, you can actually configure your IDLE. So from here, you can change your fonts, so the size of it, what actual font you're using, the indentation, so it's like space in your application, basically, your space in your code, etc. You can make it bold if you want. Um, say you have reading problems, that kind of thing. You can also change the colorings. So I actually do this. Now I do have custom themes. What I did, which I'm going to have to re-import. Um, you can also reassign the keys. Um, so in my case, I think I've already done that, or it's got them configured from when I've had this installed before. So like when you want to run a module or a file, because a file is technically a module. So when you want to run it, you can just I've changed mine so I can just press Control Return. Just because for me that it's a lot more comfortable because I'm using a laptop. It's a lot more comfortable. Press that than the F5 button. You can also change what happens on startup. So I generally like to have it on Open Edit window, which is what you get when you press Control New, or just whenever you open up a new file. The startup size, so that's it in characters, not pixels. If you want your cursor to blink, there's loads of stuff. So I generally don't ask it for a prompt to save. Yeah, I think that is my yeah. That's all that I keep. I did not know you could do that one. That is something that I will be including. And then you can add extensions. I'm not exactly sure what they are, but if you just so happen to, want to, if you want to take it further, and look into what extensions there are, which I may do at a later point and add a video on it into this playlist. Um, then yeah, so that's it for this video. Find that. So that's it for this video. In the next one, I'll be going through the basic data types, I believe. Yeah, so I'll be going through the basic data types so that you can. This is for if you're entirely new to Python, obviously. The basic data types and how they are used within Python. As compared to other languages, if this is your first entry into Python, but not your first attempt at programming. Like if you've programmed in languages like C, they that I'll explain more in the next video. So if you like this one, then please consider subscribing, um, hitting the like button, subscribing, and also clicking on the notification bell icon to keep up to date on all of my uploads. So if you're watching this tutorial from the beginning, and you want to just learn Python, then or at least the basics of getting to understand Python syntax at least, then head over to the next video. Unless you're watching before it's been released, then it should be out in a couple of days. So that being said, I'll see you in the next one.